Oh, this segment breaks my heart, man. It really does. So, Khanna went on Morning Joe, and he was asked about Joe Manchin, and he said a similar thing about Joe Manchin previously, but he's leaning into this point, and this point just could not be more wrong. Let's take a look.
What is your view of where the focus should be of Democrats in this midterm year? You've sort of had interesting takes on Senator Manchin, for example, where you said, I understand what he's dealing with. He's running in West Virginia, a state that voted for Donald Trump overwhelmingly. Some of your progressive colleagues have suggested he'd be primaried. What do you think that your party should be looking at on the hopes of holding on to a House? You've had retirements. It doesn't look good at this moment from the outside.
Well, I'm still cautiously hopeful, but we ought to respect Senator Manchin. We ought to understand where he's coming from. We ought to give him the deference of coming up with what he wants. And he's going to propose climate investments. He's going to say, let's have preschool for every 3-year-old and 4-year-old. He's going to be for Medicaid expansion. Let's pass that. That will be historic. It'll show we can get something done. I think we ought to get it to the president's desk. So I have a lot of respect for him, and I think we can come to a compromise.
How long have these negotiations been going on, Congressman Khanna? How long? How long have they been going on? 6 months? Longer? This entire time, homeboy could have said, here's exactly what I'm in favor of and here's what I want to do. He didn't at any point. In fact, he was asked directly by the media a number of times, what are you in favor of? He's like, I don't want to negotiate in public. I'm sure he was asked by Biden behind the scenes, what exactly are you in favor of? What exactly do you want? Didn't have an answer. Didn't have an answer. Why are you acting like he's a good faith actor? He is corrupt, Congressman Khanna. Joe Manchin is corrupt. He's bought off. Have you read the article in The Intercept called Joe Manchin's Dirty Empire? I mean, it lays it out in no uncertain terms. Hey, here's what's going on with this guy. He gets personally wealthy off of dirty energy, and then he sits on the committee and makes decisions about whether or not we should get off dirty energy and try to attempt to fix climate change. Do you not see the problem there? Do you not see how his daughter is directly involved in price fixing for pharmaceuticals and openly caught in emails dead to rights saying like, yeah, how do we come up with an excuse to price gouge people on this stuff? The guy is an absolute corporate whore. He's not an honest actor who has ideological disagreements with you. That's not what it is. If he had ideological disagreements, he could have laid them out at any point in the last 6 months. He didn't. He killed all of Build Back Better after saying, I promise you we're going to make a deal. Just pass the bipartisan infrastructure deal first, and then we'll work out the details. And now you're saying it's a good idea to let him just write the entire legislation and then just pass it. Well, how do you know he's going to write a piece of legislation that's reasonable? There's no reason to believe that. He voted 50 to 60% of the time with Donald Trump, and you think he's going to write an unobjectionable piece of legislation that should get the support of the left flank in Congress? On what planet is that the case? And you say, oh, he's in favor of something on climate change. Well, no, he's not, because he stripped out some of the original provisions in the original Build Back Better deal. So he's not in favor of something that's sufficient on climate. He's in favor of universal pre-K. How much do you want to bet that if/when, and by the way, it's likely he won't bring up anything, but even if he does bring up something, how much you want to bet that whatever his piece of legislation is with universal pre-K, it won't be universal? How do I know that? Because he's not in favor of universality. He said he wants means testing for fucking every provision. So what are you talking about? What are you talking about? What is with these perma-cucked Dems and their mindset of like, we're only as good as the most conservative Democrat, and that's okay? Well, if you're only as good as the most conservative Democrat, then just admit you are 50 to 60% of the time with Donald Trump. So you are literally the half Republican Party. That's what you are. You're not the Democratic Party. You're the half Republican Party. You are the Republican Light Party. Just admit it, if that's the case. Why are we acting like Joe Manchin is president? Why is he getting deference in these conversations? Well, you need to find a way to get him and work with him, and that's the only way that we're ever going to get anything done. Read about LBJ. Read about FDR. Read about the tactics that they used to twist arms. Look, you lead the kind way. You lead the open-minded way. You lead the nice way. You lead the backslapping way. And oftentimes that works with people. But if it doesn't work, guess what? Time for some new tactics. Time for a carrot or stick approach. Time to play hardball. But there was never hardball, ever. They went right from, let's be nice and backslapping to, okay, we're cucks. You write the entire legislation and then we'll pass it. And oh, look, you still haven't written any legislation. Maybe you just don't want anything passed because you're corrupt. Oh my God. Look, I like Khanna personally. He's a lovely guy, but this is just so naive. It's so naive. He goes on to make a good point, similar to a segment we did earlier. We got a new Intel factory coming to Ohio, which is a giant microchip semiconductor factory. We have a new GM, or 3 or 4 new GM factories coming to Ohio. That's all good stuff. Apparently the administration was involved in that deal. He's like, hey, Democrats should talk about this, should run on this, should do more of this. He wrote a great new book about how it's time for a new deal, and what we could do is create technology jobs all around the country. And not that sort of like learn to code type bullshit. No, but you have, Silicon Valley jobs can come to the Midwest, come to the middle of the country, reinvigorate the economy. They can actually be factory jobs. That's a good idea. I support Khanna on that front. But this line that you're only as good as the most conservative Democrat is defeatism 101. And it's functionally corporatism because he's a corporatist, Joe Manchin, and you're saying I co-sign whatever he wants to do. So when you have the left flank of the Democrats co-signing the most right-wing Democrat, that means the left-wing Democrats are just being right-wing Democrats. Forgive me for demanding better than that. If you want to see me and Crystal Ball interview legends like Noam Chomsky, Cornel West, and more, subscribe to Crystal, Kyle, and Friends on Substack. $5 a month gets you the video version a day early. Remember, we take 0 ad dollars for this podcast. Or you can sign up on Substack for free and get the audio version a day later. Link in the video description box below.